Hey, y'all. I've been giving a little bit of thought and consideration to this term that has really found its way into the literary lexicon, that being toxic masculinity. And, it's always associated with, a guy who is emotionally unavailable, someone who is misogynistic, who moves into a place of male chauvinism and is just more so a scourge to society, so to speak. And, of course, there are individuals out there like that. I think the majority of men, though, are totally opposite of that. I think those types of characterizations are totally antithetical to the everyday man. I don't like the term toxic masculinity, and I'll tell you why. One is that the misnomer is that terminology of toxic masculinity is almost an indictment to where just being born male is a detriment. All of a sudden, just because you're born male, because you have masculine traits, that term is attached to masculinity. I mean, so much so that to even talk about masculinity, you often have to have an adjective attached to the word. It's got to be healed masculinity, transparent masculinity, vulnerable masculinity. It's got to always have some type of adjective that's attached to it, to where masculinity in and of itself just can't seemingly stand on its own. And I think real masculinity has the level of vulnerability and maturity and identity that are products of really the ebb and flow and essence of true manhood. I've mentioned before in other YouTube videos that a man's divine nature and essence is rooted really in Genesis chapter 2. If you think about Adam wasn't even given a woman or a wife, so to speak, until he first was on a mission with his work. Right? As a man, Adam had a purpose, Adam had a place, Adam had presence, and he had power. Adam had a purpose, which was to tend the garden, was to oversee what God had made him an overseer of. He had a place. His place was in the garden. But I also think a man needs to, yes, know his purpose, but he also needs to know his place in life. He's got to ask the questions. Who am I? What was I created to do? What is my gift? Where do I see myself going? Who do I want coming with me? Those are the things that really place him in a space and place to where he does not use his masculinity to hurt, but to help, not to hinder or harm, but to really cause people to be fruitful and to really develop who they are. He's a man like Adam had a purpose, he had a place, he had presence. It wasn't just his own presence, because us as brothers, we can have our own presence to where we G'd up from the feet up. We got our 2 chains, you know what I'm saying? We flossing and glossing and all that other stuff. But it is not what I'm wearing, it's about who I'm becoming. That really separates me in my purpose, place, presence, and then also power. Adam had power to subdue. Adam had power to dominate, not the woman, but dominate his space. And I think misappropriated power is about domination of others versus about dominating the domain or the purpose and the place, the space of what it is, that you are supposed to focus on and really hone in on as an individual. When you really think about all of those aspects to what in many cases becomes the terminology that's deleterious to men, especially with masculinity. I think it is a hesitation in society to where we feel as if men are going to misappropriate their power. We've seen time and time again of to whom much is given, much is required, but a lot of people didn't meet the requirements. And to a certain degree, we become very hesitant, reticent, much less even fearful of masculinity. Masculinity in and of itself should be from a place of love. It should be from a place of togetherness. A lot of times in and of itself, we don't even associate the term love. We don't associate vulnerability. We don't associate maturity with masculinity. But those are the real traits. Those are the real attributes of it. I'm grown, right? I'm grown. And nobody has ever really been able to express to me what being a man is all about. What should I become, and what should a woman look for, in a masculine man? A lot of times we say, oh, masculine man is all about him bringing in six figures. It's all about him, being he's a high value man because he makes, XYZ, $100,000 plus this, that, and the other. Listen, you can have all the money, but your mentality is messed up. Because now you don't know and don't have the proper identity even in your masculinity, right? And now you try to subdue or dominate with your dollars because you don't have any determination, much less the real essence of common sense. Always a real man takes care of his family, a real man protects, a real man provides. And that's what society, inculcates in us. A man is supposed to provide, protect, procreate, but it doesn't really speak to the essence of our purpose. Nothing is worse than a man who is void of vision and purpose. He's a dangerous man. He's a lost man. He's going to hurt the queen that's in his life. He's going to hurt the family that he has. He's going to hurt his community. He's going to hurt himself in the long run, because he's not healed. And because he's not healed, now he's bleeding on people who didn't even cut him. And all those things, the family, for the provisionary, the protector, that provider, that's all well and good. But if everybody's saying the same thing, then why are our brothers caught in the same thing or doing the opposite of what they're saying? And here it is. I think I finally found it. I think I finally found the answer to it. And really the answer is in 1 Corinthians chapter 13, verse 11. Paul said, when I was a child, I spake like a child. I thought like a child. I reasoned like a child. But when I became a man, I gave up childish ways. I remember when I was a kid, my mama said, hey, you're not going outside until the room is clean. And I'd open up as much as I possibly could in the house, and I'd clean up as much as I possibly could. And I said, yeah, the room is clean now. The room is clean. Can I go outside and play ball? She opened up the closet and all the stuff fell out on her because it wasn't organized properly. She looked under the bed, lifted up the bed skirt. I threw everything up under there. Right? I wish I could just snap my fingers and everything would just be put away. No, it doesn't happen by osmosis. I had to actively engage in putting certain things away so that I could do what I was supposed to do. Being a man is not about what you can accumulate. Being a man is not about what you can get. Being a man is about what you're willing to give up. That's what it's about. And if you notice this, the verses in the love chapter, 1 Corinthians chapter 13 is categorized as the love chapter. Number one, can you substitute your name or the person's name for the word love? Right? For instance, begins, for love is patient, love is kind. Can you substitute your name for the word love? Right? Pookie or Ray Ray. Can you substitute? Pookie is patient. Ray Ray is kind. Can you substitute your name or that person's name for the word love? If not, because the word becomes a mirror, then that means you and I have some work to do. Also, if you notice, this verse is in the love chapter. And a lot of times, as I said before, we don't associate men with the word love. But Paul is expressing the real prerequisite for a man to love. For a man to love, he must first change what he's thinking. Right? I spake as a child. I thought as a child. I got to change what I'm thinking. I got to change what I'm saying. I got to change what I'm willing to sacrifice and give up. Right? Essentially, his masculinity is connected to his maturity, is what Paul is telling us. Because this is in the love chapter. I've got to be a person that lives the evidence of what it is that I am now requiring of everybody else. When I was a child, I spoke like a child. I thought like a child. I reasoned like a child. But when I became a man, I put childish ways away. Hear me. Love requires vulnerability. Love requires that vulnerable aspect of us opening ourselves up. Because a lot of times as men, we don't verbalize, we internalize. A lot of times we don't think masculinity and vulnerability can coexist in the same space. All the time that vulnerability is seen as femininity in our society. Love requires vulnerability, but vulnerability is rooted in maturity. And you can't have real masculinity without maturity and vulnerability. That's the essence of what being a real man is all about. Right? It's not about the money. It's not about the cars. It's not about the clothes. It's not about the women. It's not about the notoriety. It's not about the fame. Because all of that is a mask to masculinity. The real aspect of manhood is about vulnerability, is about maturity through the lens of love that underscores masculinity. And with all that, there's no way you could be a toxic male. With all that, you don't operate and live your life as just a male. You live your life as a man because you've matured. You've developed, you've grown up. You're just not just a grown boy, right? You're not just determined by age. You're determined by your stage of maturity and identity. The vulnerability, the identity, the maturity is what creates the power of masculinity. That's what it's about. Listen, I hope you stay connected. Check out my academy where we talk about topics like this in an even more greater depth. Faith, identity, relationship, speaker training, dreddieacademy.com. If you want to grow in the areas of what I just mentioned, much less your purpose, your identity, who you are as an individual, look no further than the Academy. Join my social circle as well, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, TikTok. We don't stop at Eddie Connor Jr. Peace and love. Stay encouraged, stay uplifted, stay edified. I'll talk to you soon.